He's a 5-time startup entrepreneur. He was named Entrepreneur of the Year by Ernst & Young. He was also named 40 Under 40 by Business of Vancouver. He quit his job when he was 40 and went to travel 13 countries, including Egypt, in the middle of the revolution. Probably wasn't the best idea. And he's one of the very few CEOs I had an opportunity to interview who loves downhill cycling. And this is actually him on the bike, so this is not photoshopped. So this is a pretty steep, this is a badass angle. His name is Jason Smith. He's the CEO of a company called Klue, and I had an opportunity to speak to him on my show, and he shares the top principles of building a successful business.
Everybody loves the accomplishment. It's the grind part that you have to take this perverse pleasure in of, it's making me a little stronger. Where's the depth of my testing, fortitude-wise, that I'm going to break? And so I love the Navy SEAL analogy versus the people that are sitting in the office barking out the orders to the SEALs. There's a point when the SEALs will turn that off and just do their thing.
Keyboard warriors.
Keyboard warriors, sure, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard this before. If I knew how hard it is, I would have not done that. A lot of successful people say the same thing. I had my own personal stories. Here's what Jason had to say about that.
And so I think in the earliest stages that being slightly naive of not knowing everything about how hard it is to do is a good thing, because generally you have, not always youth. People start companies when they're older, but some level of inexperience with it that says you're a problem solver, you'll figure it out as you go. But instead of stacking all 50 problems up that looks like a big wall, you just see the first bump on the road and you'll keep walking down the road and you'll jump over that one and then the next one and the next one. Versus going, oh my gosh, it's a marathon. Can I do a marathon?
If you talk to people who work at really successful companies or on super cool products, they do it because they really enjoy working with other smart people, other 100xers, 10xers, whatever they call them. And access to that network is really what makes or breaks your business.
But I think once you have a network, it's really helpful to get the right introductions, to get those 100 coffee meetings, to get the VCs, to get the talent in early that you're not paying full dollar amount for, but figuring out the equity split that can bring very clear, distinct value to different pillars of how you're building your business.
The phrase company culture gets tossed around all the time, and they talk about ping pong, they talk about how you get dressed, they talk about beer fridges, all of those things. But those are really the byproducts, has nothing to do with an actual culture. Jason was able to get to the core of what a culture is in plain, simple English, normal humans understand.
And so the people that you bring in that are elevating and challenging one another is what's going to set the tone for that culture that slowly gets cemented, and then they bring in the next people. And so you've talked about A players hire A players, B players hire C players. It creates that downward cycle. It's the mindset that people have. And if they come in with like, we'll figure out a way, versus the victim of, why isn't somebody doing this for me? That's not my job. Those two extremes really define your culture early.
There are two types of folks that work at the company. There's type 1, where they will do what you ask them to do, and that's all they will do. They will do it very well. But then there's a second type of people who will figure out what needs to be done, and they will get it done without you giving them specific instructions. And you need a lot of those at a startup. And there's a lot fewer of them. And they might just prefer raw salmon.
Do they have that grit? Do they have that wherewithal to figure out how to get stuff done without somebody telling them? Are they looking around the corner? Can they see around corners in any way, shape, or form, or are they just waiting for the next order? And some of these super talented people that have lived in bigger businesses with this apparatus and structure around them, super smart, like Harvard educated, awesome, but they're used to the apparatus and the structure. And so like, what, I have to get my own coffee? Like, that's insane. So there's this moment of like, versus the Bear Grylls type that is just going to figure out how to, grab a salmon out of the stream with his bare hands and cook it,
This next point that Jason shares actually doesn't apply to building a company. It also applies to any initiative that you're doing, leaving a job, changing a career, writing a book, or directing a movie, anything.
How much does this preoccupy your mind? And like, there's a lot of people that say like, this is just the only thing you think about. I don't think it's the only thing you're thinking about. I think it's something that you just keep gnawing on the problem and finding different ways to kind of learn more depth. You find yourself Googling and searching up what companies are doing it. And then you find some company somewhere that's doing it like, oh, it's done. And then you kind of dig a little deeper and they might not have it done at the angle that you're thinking about. And you're like, okay, maybe. And like each step of the way, you're testing your resilience of whether or not this is something that you feel strongly enough about to dedicate. And mentally, I'd say 10 years, like dedicate 10 years. It might not be that long, but it easily could be. And so you mentally have to say, I want to dedicate a bunch of time to getting this thing. So to do that, you go through this process of investigation, and each time you're going to be knocked down or strengthened in your own personal resolve.
Here's an interesting fact about entrepreneurs, and this is a quote from the uncle, OG, Ben Horowitz. Whenever I meet a successful CEO, I ask how they did it. Mediocre CEOs point to their brilliant strategic moves or their intuitive business sense or a variety of other self-congratulatory explanations. The great CEOs tend to be remarkably consistent in their answers. They all say, I didn't quit.
Winning isn't everything.
Here's what happened to Jason, who thought he found the right co-founder, put months of work together, paid him the salary, did equity negotiations, everything looked amazing, but it didn't.
Look, when you have an idea and you're really keen to bring it to this world and you're not the person that can actually do the development, you need a technical co-founder, and that's what I needed in my case. And I did a lot of dating. I did a lot of coffees, like hundreds of them with different folks. And then you start down the path with a couple of them. And then I narrowed it down to somebody that I thought was excellent. And turned out he was an amazing developer, actually an extraordinary developer, 10 years experience, very fast, very smart. And I was sitting side by side with this person for months, basically paying them to try and build enough of a prototype that we could maybe go get some angel money. And the Friday, when we had actually finally decided this should be the share split, this is how much you should get, I should get, and we kind of shake hands and it's done. He comes in on the Monday and says, so I have something to tell you. And I said, well, what? We're excited. We just high-fived. We're starting the company. It's official. We've been working side by side for months. Here's the split. Yeah, I'm going to New Zealand for 3 months. And I'm going to leave in 2 weeks. And I just thought you should know. And it was one of those moments where you've got this business that you just want to get off the ground, and you've got this super talented developer that you've been working with, but it's something that they didn't share with you in the discussion of what should be the founder split. And when I suddenly said, can I live with this? Can I live with this? That's probably fine that he didn't tell me. But when you flip it around and you say, I wouldn't have done that. If I were in his shoes, I would have had that discussion ahead of, an equity split discussion and all the way through. Then you realize you're going to doubt things from that point forward. And literally the next day I cut it off and put Klue on the shelf and said, I guess we'll go find something else, and went back to the drawing board to find my founder.
So trust is really the most important thing that you can have, and you really define it for yourself. There's no one specific way to do it. And the way that Jason defined it, I really like this approach. It's very rigorous, and you probably have to be, considering it can be a decade-long journey. So there you guys have it. So what's Jason up to right now? They just raised Series A, just under $20 million with Klue, and they're auto-generating battle cards. It's basically competitor intelligence. If you're in sales, if you're a product marketer, you're working on those. They happen to be quite often out of date for most B2B companies. So if you're into that kind of thing, I'll have the resources below. You can go check it out somewhere below this video. And thanks guys for watching. Hopefully you found some wisdom in these principles. And like, comment, subscribe, all those things. I will see you in the next one. Peace.